A simple question, yes or no. Did you testify that Donald Trump declassified the Mar-a-Lago documents? The FBI director sits before Congress, Senator Cory Booker waiting for an answer, and Patel won't say yes or no. He deflects. He hides behind procedure. He claims he can't talk about his own testimony, even though a court has already ruled he can, but that's just the opening. Because what comes next is far worse, a purge. Inside the FBI, agents fired, not for misconduct, but for insufficient loyalty, including a Medal of Valor recipient. A decorated hero who risked his life for this country. Gone. Because someone decided he wasn't loyal enough. 20% of FBI agents reassigned. Pulled from counterterrorism, from child exploitation cases, from public corruption investigations. Sent to immigration enforcement, not because of operational needs, because of political priorities. And the FBI director admits to frequent calls with Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi. Political, operatives making law enforcement decisions. What you're about to witness isn't oversight. It's exposure. Senator Booker systematically dismantling the fiction that the FBI operates independently, revealing how the nation's premier law enforcement agency has been turned into a political weapon. Medal of Valor recipients fired. Child exploitation cases abandoned. Counterterrorism units gutted. All while the director claims everything is fine. Stay with me. Because what happens in this hearing shows exactly how institutions collapse. Not through dramatic coups, through quiet purges, through political loyalty tests, through the systematic removal of anyone who might put duty above partisanship. This is 24 minutes that should terrify every American, regardless of politics.
In this case, you, is not barred from sharing their grand jury testimony. This is an oversight hearing. This is germane to your integrity and credibility. You know right now whether or not you testified that President Trump declassified the documents at issue in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Why are you refusing to answer that simple yes or no question right now?
Because the premise of your question is inaccurate, and
there is no premise to my question, but trying to get to an order of what is truth or not.
How do you How do you know what was asked in the grand jury if you weren't there?
Mr. Patel, this is a mockery you're making of this hearing and simple questions.
It's a simple question. If you have
Mr.
a
Patel,
transcript,
during
you can
your
read the question,
nomination
but you don't have it.
You promised that, quote, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. When I asked you, are you aware of any plans or discussions to punish in any way, including termination, FBI agents or personnel associated with the Trump administration, you explicitly said under oath that you were not aware of any plans to punish FBI agents associated with criminal investigations of Donald Trump. I don't believe you were truthful. Firing FBI employees based solely on the cases that they are investigating, their case assignments, is illegal, and you know that. A new lawsuit that's been discussed numerous times, filed by 3 FBI officials, alleges that you carried out Donald Trump's campaign of retribution, in quotes, against FBI employees for, quote, failure to demonstrate sufficient political loyalty. One of those plaintiffs has been discussed today, Brian Driscoll. Now, we know 20 years of distinguished service to the FBI before you terminated him. Special agent in charge of FBI's Newark field office, where he operated with distinction. Medal of Valor winner, Shield of Bravery awards. He's a patriot. You terminated Driscoll via a letter dated October 8th, 2025, and in that letter, you said that you were firing him pursuant to Article 2 of the Constitution. Well, you're not the President of the United States, and so I'm wondering under what authority you were allowed to terminate him.
That matter is under litigation, and I'm not able to discuss it.
Okay, well, discuss this. Did you have discussions with Stephen Miller about firing this particular person or about his continuance in the FBI?
Not that I recall.
How often do you speak to Stephen Miller?
Frequently on our Homeland Security task forces.
You frequently talk with Stephen Miller about subjects other than Homeland Security task force issues, correct?
I frequently talk to Mr. Miller about Homeland Security task forces.
Has Stephen Miller ever given you his opinions on how to run your agency?
Mr. Miller's interagency operations are invaluable to the FBI. That's what we talk about.
So you frequently discuss your job and your responsibilities with Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi, I imagine, as well.
Absolutely. She's the Attorney General.
Understood. Okay. Donald Trump promised to make us all safer. You have pushed out senior FBI agents with decades of knowledge and experience. In fact, This is the first time in FBI history that neither the director nor the deputy director have any experience with the FBI. You've shifted the agency's priorities primarily to pursuing Donald Trump's immigration enforcement agenda. According to ICE data, the Cato Institute, which is a conservative think tank, found that 20% of all agents have been diverted from their work to assist ICE immigration enforcement. 20%. Part of this operation is the work of masked law enforcement who jump out of cars, snatch people off streets at churches, schools, and their jobs and hospitals. Have there been any FBI agents who investigate crimes against children that have been assigned to immigration enforcement, yes or no?
The premise of what you say is entirely false.
Have there been any FBI agents who investigate foreign domestic terrorism?
You don't get to say America is not safer under this leadership.
I am not saying
America is safer because of the work of the FBI.
You're making a presumption of premise.
4,700 children.
Sir,
we have seized 6,000 weapons and 23,000 violent felons have been arrested.
That FBI agents who investigate human trafficking have been reassigned to immigration enforcement. You are not denying that FBI agents who are on the task force that fight against Russian oligarchs have not been reassigned. Public Corrections Squad, reassigned. People who defend children, reassigned. You're not denying that. I've seen you time and time again attack my colleagues' premises of questions as a way to not answer the question. So let me end with this. I believe you have made our country weaker and less safe. I believe that we are more vulnerable to a major event, and I pray to God it doesn't happen. You've gutted the Bureau of Institutional Knowledge and Expertise. You fired or pushed out seasoned FBI officials, many with more than 20 years of experience, and were working on cases that were critical. You've been purging thousands of serious law enforcement officials who spent their careers keeping us safe, only to lower hiring standards in order to find anyone to replace them. And shockingly, you admitted in this hearing to Senator Coons that it would take 14 years to fill the vacancies at your agency. Many are the result of your purge. 20% of FBI agents are doing low-level immigration enforcement instead of their mission-critical work. You've disbanded entire task forces that stop election interference, foreign influence, public corruption. And who benefits from this? Well, corrupt people benefit from it. Criminals benefit from it. Vladimir Putin benefits from it. And it really makes me wonder who you're looking out for. It makes me think we can't trust you as a nation. You swear to release the Epstein files, but now you're withholding the Epstein files. You claim that you have a suspect in a serious assassination. Whoops, then you don't have a suspect. You know nothing about plans to remove FBI agents, yet you're directly involved in those plans. In the words of an ex-FBI official, you are overseeing, and I quote, generational destruction of the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Mr. Patel, in just 8 months, you have assaulted the institutional integrity of the FBI. But I know FBI field agents. I've worked with them in Newark. No matter how truly bad you are, you can't undermine the legacy of agents who fight every day to keep us safe, but you can tarnish the integrity of the agency and undermine the agency's capacity. I believe you're failing as a leader, and that your failure does have serious implications for the safety and security of Americans and our families. We're more vulnerable to domestic and foreign attack because of your failures of leadership. I don't think you're fit to head the Bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this, I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending.
The question was simple, but deadly precise. Did he testify before a grand jury that the president had declassified sensitive?
Senator Cory Booker doesn't waste time. No lengthy preamble, no context setting. He goes straight for the throat. Director Patel, I want to start with a simple question. Yes or no? During your testimony in the classified documents case, did you testify that President Trump had declassified the documents found at Mar-a-Lago? It's a perfect opening question. Because it should be simple. Patel either said that or he didn't. Yes or no? But Patel doesn't answer. His face tightens. He shifts in his seat. Senator, I testified before a grand jury. I'm not at liberty to discuss that testimony. Booker doesn't accept the dodge. Director Patel, a federal judge, has already ruled that you can discuss your testimony. The protective order has been modified. There's no legal barrier preventing you from answering. Patel tries again. Senator, I would defer to the special counsel's office on what can and cannot be disclosed. You testified. About what you personally said. I'm asking if you claimed Trump declassified documents. Yes or no? The pause is excruciating. Everyone watching can see what's happening. Patel is hiding, not because he legally has to, because the answer's damaging. Because if he says yes, he's admitting he testified to something demonstrably false. If he says no, he's contradicting reports that he did exactly that, so he says nothing. Which tells us everything. Booker lets the silence hang, then moves on, because he's just getting started. Director Patel, during your confirmation hearing, I asked you directly, will there be political retaliation inside the FBI under your leadership? Do you remember your answer? Patel nods stiffly. I said no. There would be no political retaliation. You swore to that. Under oath, correct? Yes. And you expect this committee to believe you were telling the truth? Senator, I stand by that testimony. Booker pulls out documents. Thick stack. Legal filings. Then explain this. This is a lawsuit filed by 3 former FBI officials. Brian Driscoll, Marcus Allen, Steve, friend. All 3 allege they were fired not for misconduct, but for political reasons. For questioning decisions. For refusing to participate in what they viewed as politicized investigations. Brian Driscoll. Do you know who he is? Patel's face is carefully neutral. I'm aware of Mr. Driscoll. He's a Medal of Valor recipient. The FBI's highest award for bravery. He earned it by literally risking his life in the line of duty. And you fired him. Patel bristles. Senator, I don't discuss personnel matters. You're being sued over it. It's public record. So let's discuss it. Why was Brian Driscoll terminated? Those decisions are based on performance, and he has a Medal of Valor. What performance issue could possibly justify firing a decorated hero? Patel has no good answer. Because there isn't one. Booker isn't done with the lawsuit. Because it alleges something much bigger than 3 terminations. Director Patel, according to these filings, your office conducted a systematic review of FBI personnel, specifically targeting agents who had worked on certain investigations, who had expressed certain views, who were seen as insufficiently loyal. Is that accurate? Senator, we conduct routine personnel reviews. Routine? Let me read from the complaint. Now, the review specifically targeted agents who had participated in investigations related to January 6th, the classified documents case, or election interference. That's not routine. That's a political loyalty test. Patel tries to deflect. We review all personnel for performance and suitability. But these specific investigations, those specifically triggered enhanced scrutiny, all significant cases undergo review. That's not what I asked. Were agents who worked on Trump-related investigations specifically targeted for personnel review? Patel won't answer directly, because answering would confirm the accusation, so Booker provides more details. From the lawsuit, from whistleblower reports, from media accounts, a pattern emerges. Agents who worked on politically sensitive cases involving Trump or his associates, suddenly facing enhanced scrutiny, questioned about their political views, asked to justify decisions made years earlier, and many of them terminated, reassigned, forced to resign. That's not performance review. That's a purge. Then Booker drops something that makes legal experts in the room sit up straight. Director Patel, the lawsuit alleges you invoked Article 2 authority to terminate these agents. Is that correct? Patel hesitates. In certain cases, yes. Explain what Article 2 authority means. It refers to the president's constitutional authority over the executive branch. Specifically, it means you fired these agents not under FBI regulations, not under civil service protections, but under presidential authority. In certain cases where that authority applies, yes. Booker leans forward. Director Patel, you're not the president. You're the FBI director. You don't have Article 2 authority. The president does. So when you invoke Article 2 authority to fire agents, what you're really saying is, the president ordered this. I'm just carrying it out. That's not quite accurate, Senator. Then clarify. Did President Trump order you to fire these specific agents? I have regular communications with the president about FBI operations. Did he order you to fire Brian Driscoll? I don't discuss specific directives from the president, because if you did, you'd be admitting these firings were political, that they came from the White House, that this was exactly the political retaliation you swore wouldn't happen. Patel's silence confirms it. Everyone watching knows. The firings came from above, and Patel is carrying them out. Booker shifts to another angle, the web of political coordination around these decisions. Director Patel, how often do you communicate with Stephen Miller? Patel looks wary. I communicate with senior administration officials as appropriate. That's not what I asked. How often? I don't keep a specific count. Weekly? Daily? It varies. And Pam Bondi? How often do you speak with the Attorney General? Again, as appropriate for coordination between agencies. Booker pulls out phone records. Not the private conversations, but official logs, meeting schedules, call records that are part of official business. According to these documents, you spoke with Stephen Miller 17 times in January alone. You met with Pam Bondi at least 12 times. That's more than weekly. That's constant coordination. Now let me ask, in those conversations, did you discuss personnel decisions, investigations, priorities? We discuss a range of operational matters, including which agents to fire, which investigations to pursue or shut down, which priorities to emphasize. Senator, those conversations are privileged. Executive privilege doesn't cover criminal conspiracy. And if you're coordinating law enforcement decisions based on political considerations, that's not privileged communication. That's evidence. Patel looks genuinely uncomfortable because Booker is right, and the frequency of contact suggests the FBI isn't operating independently. It's taking direction from political operatives. Then Booker reveals something that makes even other senators react visibly. Director Patel, let me ask about resource allocation. How many FBI agents have been reassigned from their original units since you became director? Patel's answer is vague. We regularly adjust resource allocation based on priorities. I'm asking for a number. What percentage of FBI personnel have been reassigned? I don't have that figure readily available. I do. Booker holds up a document. According to internal FBI data provided to this committee, approximately 20% of FBI agents have been reassigned in the last 6 months. 1 in 5. That's not regular adjustment. That's wholesale restructuring. And where have they been reassigned? Not to counterterrorism, not to cyber threats, not to organized crime, to immigration enforcement operations. Is that accurate? We've enhanced our focus on border security and immigration law enforcement by pulling agents from other critical missions, by allocating resources consistent with administration priorities. Administration priorities, not national security priorities, not crime-fighting priorities. Political priorities, Booker lets that distinction sink in because it's damning. The FBI exists to protect Americans from threats. Not to enforce whatever the current administration's political agenda happens to be, but under Patel, that's exactly what's happening. Booker gets specific about what was sacrificed, and it's heartbreaking. Director Patel, before these reassignments, how many agents were working on child exploitation cases? I don't have that exact number. The FBI's own data shows approximately 1,500 agents dedicated to crimes against children. After your restructuring, down to 1,200. That's 300 fewer agents investigating child sexual abuse, trafficking, online exploitation. 300 agents who could be rescuing children, arresting predators. Preventing abuse? Where are they now? Senator, we maintain robust capabilities in all mission areas. That's not what I asked. Where are those 300 agents? They've been reassigned to support immigration enforcement operations, so children are being abused. Right now, while investigations are delayed or closed, because you decided immigration enforcement was more important than protecting kids. Does that sound like appropriate prioritization? Patel's response is defensive. We take crimes against children extremely seriously, not seriously enough to keep agents working those cases. Booker pauses. Let the weight of that settle. 300 agents. 300 investigations delayed or abandoned. How many children remained in abusive situations because of that decision? That's the real cost of politicizing the FBI, not abstract concerns about institutional independence. Real children suffering real harm. But children aren't the only victims of Patel's restructuring. Director Patel, what about counterterrorism? How many agents were reassigned from counterterrorism units? Again, I don't have those specific figures. I do. 250 agents. Pulled from monitoring domestic extremism, international terrorism, weapons of mass destruction threats. 250 agents who were tracking terrorist cells, preventing attacks, monitoring threats. Where are they? Resources have been reallocated to immigration enforcement again. So while domestic extremist groups are recruiting, planning, stockpiling weapons, you've reduced the FBI's capability to monitor them because immigration is more important. Senator, we continue to investigate all terrorist threats with fewer people. Less capability, reduced coverage, and when the next attack happens, when the next massacre occurs because the FBI missed warning signs, will you tell the victims' families that immigration enforcement was more important? Patel has no answer, because there is no good answer. You can't defend weakening counterterrorism while claiming you're keeping America safe. The two positions are incompatible, but that's exactly what Patel is trying to do, and Booker isn't letting him get away with it. Booker continues cataloging the damage. Director Patel, public corruption investigations, government officials taking bribes, elected representatives abusing power, foreign agents infiltrating government. How many agents work those cases now compared to 6 months ago? We maintain appropriate staffing in all critical areas. The question was specific. How many? Patel won't answer. Because the answer is damaging, so Booker provides it. 180 agents previously assigned to public corruption cases have been reassigned. That's a 30% reduction. 30% fewer people investigating corruption in government. And this happened while your administration has been accused of unprecedented conflicts of interest. While foreign governments are allegedly paying for access, while ethics concerns are mounting, seems convenient, doesn't it? Gut the unit that investigates government corruption just when there might be government corruption worth investigating. Patel bristles. Senator, I resent the implication. You can resent it all you want. But explain why those agents were reassigned. What threat became so urgent that investigating corruption inside government became less important? Immigration enforcement, again. So corruption can flourish. Extremists can plot. Children can be exploited. As long as immigration numbers look good, that's not law enforcement. That's political theater with real victims. Booker steps back to address the bigger picture, the long-term damage being done. Director Patel, I want to talk about institutional expertise. The FBI is effective because it has deep bench strength. Agents who've worked cases for decades, who know their subjects intimately, who've built relationships with sources, learned patterns, developed instincts. That expertise takes years to build, and it can be destroyed overnight through bad personnel decisions. When you fire Medal of Valor recipients, you don't just lose one agent. You lose their knowledge, their networks, their mentorship of younger agents. When you reassign 300 agents from child exploitation, you don't just delay cases. You break continuity, lose institutional memory, destroy relationships with victim advocates and local law enforcement. When you gut counterterrorism, you're not just reducing headcount. You're eliminating expertise that literally cannot be replaced quickly, because understanding terrorist networks requires years of immersion. You're creating what I'd call a generational wound. Damage that will take decades to heal, and for what? So you can show immigration arrest numbers? So you can prove loyalty to political priorities? That's not leadership. That's vandalism, Patel tries to respond. Senator, I disagree with your characterization. Of course you do. Because admitting the damage would mean admitting you're failing at your job, but the damage is real. Ask the agents who've been fired or reassigned. Ask the victims whose cases are delayed. Ask the American people who are less safe because you prioritize politics over protection. Booker returns to the core accusation, the one that ties everything together. Director Patel, let's talk about what's really happening here. You promised no political retaliation, no loyalty tests, no politicization of the FBI, but every piece of evidence suggests the opposite. Agents who worked Trump-related investigations, fired or reassigned. Agents who questioned politically motivated priorities, pushed out. Medal of Valor. Recipients who might put duty over politics, terminated. Meanwhile, you're in constant contact with political operatives. You're invoking presidential authority to bypass civil service protections. You're restructuring the entire FBI around immigration enforcement, the signature political issue of this administration. That's not coincidence. That's a systematic effort to turn the FBI into a political tool, and you're doing it by removing anyone who might resist, anyone who might put their oath to the Constitution above loyalty to a president. That's a loyalty test. Whether you call it that or not, Patel's response is weak. The FBI operates independently and professionally. Then, explain Brian Driscoll. Explain the 300 agents pulled from child exploitation. Explain the 20% of the FBI reassigned to serve political priorities. If you're operating independently, why does every decision happen to align perfectly with political interests? Why does every firing happen to target people who worked cases politically inconvenient to Trump? Why does every resource reallocation happen to match campaign rhetoric rather than actual threat assessments? Either you're the unluckiest director in FBI history, where every professional decision accidentally serves political goals, or you're lying. Which is it? Booker elevates the stakes. Because this isn't just about the FBI. It's about constitutional governance. Director Patel, the FBI exists as an independent agency for a reason. The founders understood that law enforcement cannot be subject to political control. Because once it is, you don't have justice. You have power. When the FBI investigates based on evidence rather than political priorities, that's the rule of law. When the FBI protects all Americans regardless of party, that's equal justice. When the FBI resists pressure to target enemies and protect allies, that's independence. But under your leadership, we're seeing the opposite. Investigations that might embarrass the president are shut down. Agents who work those investigations are fired. Resources are reallocated to serve political messaging. That's not law enforcement. That's authoritarian use of state power. And the fact that you're doing it through bureaucratic procedures doesn't make it less dangerous. It makes it more dangerous. Because it creates the illusion of legitimacy while destroying the substance, we're watching a constitutional crisis unfold in slow motion. The systematic politicization of law enforcement. The removal of institutional checks. The transformation of the FBI from an independent agency to a political tool, and you're either blind to it or complicit in it. I'm not sure which is worse. Patel tries to defend. Senator, the FBI continues to fulfill its mission. Your mission is to protect Americans, but you're making them less safe to serve political interests. That's not mission fulfillment. That's mission failure. Booker brings it back to the human level, because statistics and legal arguments don't capture the real impact. Director Patel, I want you to think about Brian Driscoll, not as a lawsuit, not as a personnel file. As a person, he joined the FBI to serve his country. He spent years in dangerous assignments. He literally put his life on the line multiple times to protect Americans. He earned the Medal of Valor, your agency's highest recognition of courage, and you fired him. Imagine how that feels, dedicating your life to service, earning your agency's highest honor, and then being told you're not loyal enough, not politically reliable enough, not sufficiently committed to the president's agenda. Now think about the child exploitation agents you reassigned. They were investigating the worst crimes imaginable, finding children in terrible situations, arresting predators, making cases that take months or years of patient work. You pulled them off those cases. Not because the cases were solved, not because the threats were neutralized, because immigration enforcement was politically more important. How do you think those agents feel? Knowing that children remained in abusive situations because you decided political priorities mattered more? And the counterterrorism agents, who spent years infiltrating extremist groups, building cases, monitoring threats. You reduced their capability right when domestic extremism is surging, right when attacks are increasing. How safe do they feel, knowing expertise is being sacrificed for political theater? These are real people doing real work, being sacrificed for political gain. Throughout all of this, Patel's responses follow a pattern, and Booker calls it out. Director Patel, I've noticed something. Every question I ask, you dodge. I ask about Brian Driscoll, you say you can't discuss personnel matters, even though he's publicly suing you. I ask about resource allocation. You say you don't have figures available, even though this committee requested those figures weeks ago. I ask about political coordination. You claim executive privilege, even though coordinating law enforcement for political purposes isn't privileged. I ask about child exploitation cases. You claim you maintain robust capabilities, even though your own data shows a 30% reduction. Every answer is designed to avoid accountability, to deflect rather than defend, to hide behind procedure rather than address substance. You know what that tells me? It tells me you can't defend these decisions on the merits. Because if you could explain why firing Medal of Valor recipients serves the FBI's mission, you would. If you could justify pulling agents from child exploitation for immigration enforcement, you would. If you could show that these restructuring decisions were based on threat assessments rather than political priorities, you would, but you can't, because they weren't. And you know it, so you dodge. You deflect. You hide behind technicalities and procedures. That's not leadership. That's cowardice, and the American people deserve better. Booker addresses the broader consequence, the erosion of public trust. Director Patel, let me read you some polling data. Public trust in the FBI has declined sharply in the last year, not just among Democrats, among all Americans. More than 60% of respondents now say they don't trust the FBI to operate independently from political pressure. That's catastrophic. Because the FBI can't function without public trust. You need people to report crimes, to serve as witnesses, to cooperate with investigations. When people don't trust you're acting independently, they stop cooperating. They assume you're pursuing political agendas rather than justice, and honestly, can you blame them? Look at what we've discussed today. Political coordination with the White House, loyalty tests for agents, firings of decorated heroes, resource reallocation to serve political messaging. Why would anyone trust that's independent law enforcement? The FBI's reputation was built over decades by agents who did their jobs professionally, who followed evidence regardless of political implications, who earned respect through integrity, and you're destroying it, in months, through decisions that prioritize political loyalty over professional competence. Once that trust is gone, it's almost impossible to rebuild. You're not just damaging the FBI for this administration. You're damaging it for generations, and for what? So Donald Trump can feel confident his enemies will be investigated and his allies protected? That's not worth the cost. Nothing is worth destroying an institution as important as the FBI. Booker lays out what needs to happen. Not suggestions, requirements. Director Patel, here's what this committee expects. First, reverse the political firings. Reinstate Brian Driscoll and any other agent terminated for insufficient loyalty, with back pay and restoration of all benefits. Second, end the immigration reallocation. Return those 300 child exploitation agents to their original assignments. Return the counterterrorism agents. Return the public corruption investigators. Third, provide full documentation of your communications with Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, and other political operatives. We want to see what's being coordinated and who's making decisions. Fourth, Establish clear walls between the FBI and political operations. No more frequent calls with political advisors. No more Article 2 authority used to bypass civil service protections. Fifth, commit to genuine independence. That means investigating evidence wherever it leads. That means protecting agents who do their jobs professionally, even if results are politically inconvenient. And sixth, resign. Because honestly, I don't believe you're capable of implementing any of this. You've shown through your actions that you view the FBI as a political tool, that you're willing to sacrifice mission effectiveness for political loyalty. Someone with that mindset shouldn't lead the FBI. Can't lead the FBI effectively, so resign. Let someone who actually believes in independence take over. Someone who will rebuild trust rather than destroy it. Will you do any of those things? Patel's response is predictable. I respectfully disagree with your premises and decline your suggestions. Of course you do. Because accepting them would mean admitting everything you've done is wrong. But Booker isn't done, because there are potential legal consequences. Director Patel, I want to make something clear. If you used your position to carry out political retaliation, that's a federal crime. Obstruction of justice. Abuse of power. Deprivation of rights under color of law, the agents you fired. They're suing. Discovery will reveal emails, texts, phone records. The coordination you've denied will be documented. If those records show you fired agents for political reasons while under oath you claimed you wouldn't, that's perjury. If you coordinated with political operatives to target specific agents, that's conspiracy. If you invoked presidential authority to bypass legal protections for political purposes, that's abuse of power. These aren't hypotheticals. These are potential criminal charges with real consequences. And this hearing, this testimony, it's all on the record. Every dodge, every deflection, every claim that you operated independently. When the truth comes out, and it will come out, this transcript will be evidence of what you knew, what you denied, what you tried to hide. So I'd encourage you to reconsider your approach. Because right now, you're digging yourself deeper with every evasion. The truth protects those who tell it. But those who hide it, eventually, it destroys them. Patel looks genuinely shaken, because Booker isn't bluffing. The legal jeopardy is real. Booker delivers his closing argument, and it's devastating. Director Patel, I started this hearing by asking a simple question. Whether you testified Trump declassified documents, you wouldn't answer. Not because you legally couldn't, because the answer is damaging. That set the tone for everything that followed. Evasion, deflection, hiding behind procedure, but the facts are clear. You've conducted a political purge. You've reallocated resources to serve political rather than security priorities. You've coordinated with political operatives. You've destroyed institutional expertise, and through it all, you've claimed everything is fine. That you're operating independently. That there's no political influence. No one believes that. Not me, not this committee, not the American people. You've made Americans less safe. You've destroyed trust in a critical institution. You've betrayed the oath you swore, and for what? To prove loyalty to a president? To advance a political agenda? To settle scores against people who did their jobs professionally? None of that justifies the damage you've done. History will judge you harshly. These transcripts will remain. The fired agents will tell their stories. The consequences of your decisions will become undeniable, and when people look back at this moment, they'll see clearly you had a choice. Between duty and politics, between protecting Americans and protecting power. You chose wrong, and America is less safe because of it. Senator Cory Booker asked every question that needed asking. He exposed the purge. He documented the reallocation. He revealed the political coordination. FBI Director Kash Patel provided exactly the answers you'd expect from someone with something to hide. Dodge, deflect, deny. We learned that Brian Driscoll, Medal of Valor recipient, was fired for political reasons. That 300 child exploitation agents were pulled from their cases. That 20% of the FBI was restructured to serve immigration enforcement. We learned that Patel coordinates constantly with political operatives. That he invokes presidential authority to bypass legal protections. That he conducts loyalty tests while claiming he doesn't. Most importantly, we learned that the FBI is no longer an independent law enforcement agency. It's a political tool used to advance agendas, protect allies, target enemies. That should terrify every American. Because once law enforcement becomes political, justice disappears. All that remains is power. Thank you for watching. If this hearing alarmed you, it should. Share this video. Demand accountability. Contact your representatives. The FBI can be saved. But only if people insist on it. Only if the cost of politicization becomes greater than the benefit. Right now, Patel thinks he can get away with it. Prove him wrong. Until next time, stay informed. Stay engaged. And remember, institutions don't protect themselves. We protect them, or we watch them fall.